All right. Welcome back to AI Data Mastery, where we explore how AI and data are reshaping B2B businesses. Quick thanks to our sponsor, Data Accelerator and Evolve with AI. We appreciate you. And I'm your host, Jason Reno, and very, very excited today. Today on the show, we're honored to welcome Carajane Moore, president and partner of Hunt Big Sales, which every B2B firm needs help with. She has helped clients with over 22 billion with a B in big ticket B2B sales by mastering the art of executive level selling, strategic targeting, and high value relationships. She merges decades of sales leadership with a sharp focus on process, language, and outcome driven results. In our conversation, we're going to dig deep into how companies can possibly use AI and data and strategic systems to build relationships and win these big deals. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Carajane. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you. And gosh, that was a great introduction. I don't know if I can add to that. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that was an AI written introduction. So, I mean, that's kudos to that.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was fantastic. So, yeah, I'm Carajane Moore, president and partner of Hunt Big Sales. And that's exactly what we do. We work with B2B businesses. We focus really on the small to mid-sized businesses. And I think I kind of mentioned in some of our other conversations, we like to work with the Davids to beat the Goliaths, right? We want to level the playing field for the small to mid-sized businesses to land those very large pieces of business against their bigger competitors. And so to narrow it down, that's really the focus of what we do. And gosh, it's a blast. Every time you land a very large deal, everybody celebrates. So
of course, yeah. So what I really wanted to dig into here today is I really want to open people's eyes, or open, fellow B2B business owners and entrepreneurs into the depth that it takes. I feel like there's a misconception right now, and obviously not everybody, but for the most part, the amount of preparation, the amount of knowledge and research and everything that needs to be done to close those big deals, and then tie into AI and data. Because I was just talking with another guest where even just the research part, researching the client, researching all the decision makers, I mean, that would take a sales guy a month sometimes to do, a week to do, if you really want to go in depth. That can now literally be done within seconds. So
right.
I guess from your coaching perspective, can you kind of go through from start, not necessarily start to finish, but kind of go through in depth what you feel like it takes to, to land that big deal or generate the lead, and then what it takes to kind of take them through the finish line?
That's a big ask. So
I was going to say, maybe I was going to say that could be a lot, but let's just start in the beginning in terms of like the pre-research. You have a potential big client, you have the lead, you have the connection, you have the referral. What goes into, or what do you think should go into researching that company and those decision makers?
Well, first and foremost, I think to your point, there's a lot of research, but there's also a lot of players too, right? So in large deals, and when we talk about large deals, we're talking about deals that are 5 to 10 times the size of an average deal, generally well over $1 million. So let's be clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're not talking 10 or $20,000 deals. We're talking multiple 6 figures and 7-figure deals,
Exactly. And so in that case, you're talking, whether you are aware of it or not, there are 9 to 11 buyers on your buyer's side. So when we start talking about what it takes to land those types of deals, you have to understand, you have to connect and know who all those people are that are influencing that decision, first and foremost.
So you're saying at that company that you're trying to sell to, when you're dealing with a 7-figure deal, there's at least 9 to 11 people, decision makers, key stakeholders that you have to win over, correct?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Now, the other thing too is oftentimes as small to mid-sized businesses, we're used to speaking more at a mid-level, manager, VP level. When you start talking about large deals, those deals are driven and decided by senior executives. So now you don't go in the mid-level and then have them carry your water to the senior executive. You have to go in at the senior executive level and bring all the other players to them as a part of the conversation through you and all of your people. So if you have 9 to 11 people on their side, you've got to bring 7 to 9 people on our side. We got to do a peer-to-peer, power-to-power match. Why?
So, because that means, for example, you don't want somebody from like sales talking to the IT guy about the IT securities and everything. I see
100%.
what you mean. You don't. I honestly, I didn't even realize. I mean, for a pre-conversation, you opened my eyes to how many stakeholders could be involved in a big deal like this. But I didn't even think about that from the seller side too, trying to match peer to peer, so that way people are speaking the same language and relationships are built. And wow, that's eye
Ex-
opening right there.
Exactly. So if we want to talk about what is all involved, so we're just right now, we just started talking about people. Well, so you got to research the people, you got to understand who they are, you have to understand the industry of the business that you're talking to, you have to understand how do they make money, you have to understand what that business's maybe unique proposition is in the marketplace, what are they trying to do for their customers, and you have to understand what you do and how it fits into their overall strategy. If it is not one of their top strategy pieces, most likely it's not a buy for this year. So you
Ah,
have to be able to figure out how to do that. What problem do I solve for them that's high enough that I can get an executive in the room that meets a strategy and something they're willing to invest in this year? So who you go after and what you go after is very narrow compared to your overall TAM. And a TAM is total available market or addressable market for
mhm.
people who are not maybe familiar with that term. So out of your whole total addressable market, you've got to narrow down really tightly as an executive team who you're going to go after for those large deals, because it's very expensive. And when I say expensive, I'm saying the statistics show it's $10,000 per stage on your side in an expense to go hunt those. Most
Wow.
sales processes are 7 to 9 stages. So to go land it, you are spending in hard and soft dollars about $75,000 to $100,000 to get that piece of business. Also, not always calculated, not always understood, which is why it's expensive and you have to be very clear about where you're going and what you're doing. So you've researched all the individuals, you've researched the business, you've researched the departments, you've researched what their total strategy is, what are their key drivers before you ever go and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, because you could have the best product or service. It could be a great fit, but it just might not even be in the budget for say 2025 or 2026. And now you go invest 75 to $100,000 to try to close this deal that they don't even have in the budget, something that you could have possibly found out or uncovered before you even went down that path, right?
Absolutely. Or you uncover in your first interaction with them. So you immediately go, nice to meet you. Talk to you next year. Why? Because you've got to save your team and your business that $75,000 to $100,000 if it's not truly a viable opportunity. So one of
Is
the
there,
things,
besides just asking the potential client, like, hey, is this even in the budget? Is this something you're interested in? Is there any other ways to try to find that out? Or
well, yes, depending on who you're going after. Obviously, if you're going after a company that is public, their quarterly reports, their annual reports always establish what are their priorities, what are their key initiatives and drivers, what's their long-term vision, what's their short-term vision. You can find out a lot of that early on. Now, we have to be able to make a financial business case, right? So many people want to talk about a lot of really fantastic fuzzy things, and fuzzy things don't get bought.
that makes sense.
So we also have to understand, that's why you have to understand their business, you got to understand their money, you got to be able to understand how their financials run. And so to your point, how do we find out up front these things? You go to annual reports. But then when you go to talk to them, you have to be able to very clearly articulate for them what business problem you solve, for who you solve it for, and the outcomes you provide. We don't go in on a large deal and talk about services we can offer or packages we provide, right?
Yeah. So
We have to be able to demonstrate an outcome, a measurable outcome in their business.
Gotcha. So when you say you don't go in and talk about services, you're like you said, you're coming in and talking about the solution. You're selling the end result. You're selling, what's the story? You're selling the picture hanging on the wall, not the drill bit that, drilled the hole to put the screw in to hang the picture on the wall, right? It's
Yeah, 100%. First of all, higher level decision makers don't solve today's problems. They solve tomorrow's problems. Our job in large account sales is to sell a better future.
Gotcha.
Not to solve a today problem. That's a transactional problem, and that's somebody that the department head has been led to go solve. So once again, understanding you're leading them to the future. And
so you have to obviously disclose or uncover what their pain points are in that particular industry or niche that they're in, that particular company. And then you have to try to have the forethought of, hey, this isn't a problem today, but this is going to be a problem. And here's why our solution is so valuable. So this doesn't become a problem, or we turn this problem into, a non-problem, or, a better outcome, so to speak. Correct?
Right. Yeah. So we're selling a better outcome. So many people want to talk about solution selling. And here's another thing. This is a Carajane comment. Okay. So just off to the side, folks. Solution selling means you're selling a solution. That solution is the actions and the things that you do to get them to the better outcome. They don't care if you stand on your head and paint yourself purple. Okay. We're not selling the solution. We're selling the outcome. So if my outcome says that I am going to increase your efficiency and your effectiveness in sales so that you will have an increase in conversion to a 50% conversion rate, which means that I'm going to double the size of your business inside of 2 years, you can personally do the math. You've got the financial numbers, and I can back it up. That's the outcome you want. Not whether I come in and do some training and I teach your people some things and we organize some tools. You really don't care. You care more of, can I get a 50% close rate on large deals? Can I double the size of my business inside the next 2 years? And then what will that mean for me as the owner, right? So I wanted to be specific, not necessarily just mine, but that was the easiest I could throw out, is what I did isn't what they were buying. What it creates is what they were buying.
Yeah. And then just being in sales and business development myself, that's one of I think the toughest challenges, right? Because you just want to come in and just, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And it's just like, look, it's shut up and listen. The more you listen, the more you uncover problems. There was what was the book I was recommended? It was by Keenan, Gap Selling, which I thought was a phenomenal book. And it's really, opened my eyes to some things in terms of, the way you sell to a big ticket. I used to be in the mortgage business in my previous life, then I transitioned into digital marketing and data and AI, where, we're going after not, $1 million clients, but clients that are, have a yearly value of several $100,000 a year to us. And sure. I admittedly fell flat on my face for a while there. It's a completely different game, building the relationships, building the trust, uncovering what they want, what they're not necessarily what they want, but what they need. Because sometimes what you're selling, they need it, but they might not know they need it yet. Or like you're saying, we're selling into the future. So it's, how do you, in the most simplest way possible? And one of the things that I've really learned is, when you're dealing with those higher level executives, your pitch, your presentation needs to be as simple as possible. You're dealing with people that probably by noon on any given day are starting to run into decision fatigue, because everybody's, coming to them and they have to constantly make decisions. So how can you simplify that decision to them to the point where you can still provide, deliver your value and deliver your end result, but not do it in a 47-page document that's never going to get read? Or, the best thing is like, one of my sales guys is like, we need to use this software with this fancy, PowerPoint, this and this. And I'm like, nah, let's do it. If we need to put it into a 1-page Google Doc, throw a logo on the top, they need to be able to digest it in about 120 seconds or less, because they're either going to know within the first half page of that document, this is interesting, or click delete.
Yeah, well, there's a couple key things that you said there that I think are really important for your audience to understand when working with executives and making these types of decisions. Absolutely as simple as possible. But the same thing is they also have to understand you've already thought 360 around that problem, right? So there's a variety of conversational tools or structures that we teach people with, but the idea is really to take them on the journey with you. And back to the idea of data, you got to start with their data. What do they know about their own organization? What are they doing now? What does that mean? So analysis, what does that mean to them? And what does that mean to them for the future? Then you got to provide the options. What are the other choices that they can make besides your solution to be able to give them a recommendation so that they can make a choice? Otherwise, you just sound like everybody else telling them a really good story, but they now don't have all of the rest of the data that they got to go. And so many times on large accounts, what we're asking them to do is to buy something they don't understand. And so then so for them to understand it, they now have to go do what? An RFP, to get a market scan, to compare all of the ideas because they don't understand how to buy. And so what we have to do is step in and teach them a little bit about their own organization, show them about what's really going on in the marketplace and how that impacts them, and what are the options besides you they could do to solve this, so that you've taken them on the journey with you. 1, 2, executives buy yield-based solutions. So meaning if we talk about the outcome, so if you're a VP, okay, you're buying a solution that's 6 months, 3 to 6 months, maybe in time frame for the organization. It generally fits within a budget or a performance metrics that you're trying to reach. If you're an executive, you're trying to make significant change. It has to be a needle mover and it has to be a yield base. So for people with digital marketing services, one of the clients we helped work through is help them understand that all of the things that they did for their customer, for every dollar they put in, they generated $7 back.
Wow.
Well, when you said that to the executive, they're like, they don't need to know about all these things.
Yeah.
Right?
That's simple math. 1 in, 7 out. Yeah. Sign me up for that.
1 in, 7 out. Your goal was to increase your awareness and increase your conversions. And for every dollar you put in, we increase your conversions to $7 out. Are you interested? Once again, it's yield based. Make sure that in talking to an executive, you're talking the yield that you're generating for them, the outcome, because they don't care. They will eventually, but they know that the people that work for them will dig into the day-to-day of how you do it.
Well, okay, so that's what I was trying not to forget my point there, or forget my comment. But yes, back to what you had just mentioned, where oftentimes the CEO, that main stakeholder, might not understand that, and that's where I think where you were mentioning before, where if there's 6 or 7 decision makers, you want 6 or 7 people building that relationship. So when the CEO doesn't understand something techie and he's going to his chief technology officer or VP of tech that now already has a relationship with your techie guy or that comparable person at your business, that relationship is solidified and you're basically creating other champions or, people to champion your product or services around that decision maker, right?
Yeah, 100%. In today's world, the power to say no trumps the power to say yes. So back to the point that you made, the people around them have to be able to say yes for them to be able to say yes. If the people around them, for your example, the techie person says, yeah, no, that technology is not going to work the way they say they do, and it's not going to get the outcome. They just trumped the CEO's ability to say yes.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense.
The ability to say no trumps the ability to say yes. So go back to the understanding of the people. Well, all the data you have to do in the research, in the conversations, in the one-to-ones, you actually also have to solve each individual stakeholder's problem or issue associated with the decision that you're trying to solve, which is why large account sales are long time frames, multi-touch, multi-stage, multi-hierarchy within an organization, because you have a lot of different people, a lot of different individual stakeholder issues or problems, corporate problems, and then just the day-to-day inertia of doing business.
Yeah, that's interesting. How important do you think it is to continue to market and stay in front of these individuals? So obviously you have the ongoing communications, emails going back and forth, proposals going back and forth, but do you feel that it's important to continue to market to those individuals during that decision-making process, whether it be, my partner and I at Data Accelerator, we shot an episode about the use of programmatic marketing. Once you know who those key decision makers are, you have that group of 10, you have the ability to go locate them on the web or online and run ads to them, even if it's just little bumper ads with Google, with client reviews or statements from past clients. Or, at that point you can completely control the narrative. But
yes,
reflection, impressions equal reflection. So it's kind of like Coca-Cola doesn't, spend billions of dollars advertising every major ballpark and every, bus stop in the entire world because they want people to know about Coca-Cola. They just want it to never leave that front part of your brain and continue to impress and reflect over and over again. And I feel like that's oftentimes, a missing piece in that B2B space. It's like, okay, that lead came in, we're interested, we're communicating with that company. We don't need to market to them anymore. And I'm of the opinion that opposite, like if you were marketing to them at a 1 day a week or 1 day at a time frequency, or 1 per day frequency, let's ramp it up. Now that you have their email address, you should be emailing them on a regular basis, a newsletter, something adding value. You have the ability to now locate them and find if you can match them to a Facebook account, programmatic marketing, and continue to impress. Where if you have a 6-month deal, in my opinion, that's 180 days. That's 180 to 360 different impressions on top of normal communications. I'm not talking about a Zoom call going over your proposal. I'm talking about everything else outside of that. Those 300 plus impressions, I think make a gigantic difference in building trust and credibility to help get that deal over the finish line.
I absolutely agree. I think that there's lots of ways to do that, but I think the point that you're making is it has to be value add. I also think we have to understand it has to be across all the buyers. So maybe not the CEO gets 2 impressions a day.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. Once you know who your 10 decision makers are, let's take those and let's go. Every time that decision maker hits a Wall Street Journal, a CNBC, they're watching highlights on ESPN.com or getting a recipe from cooking.com, put your company's logo, put some sort of value statement, put some sort of third-party credibility statement from a past client showing the outcome. Like, hey, I hired this company 3 months ago, and now 6 months later, my business is doubled. Something along those lines. Not, hey, we're the best company ever, click here. But, you can control the narrative and control that message throughout that buy cycle if you do it correctly.
100%. The other thing that I encourage my clients to do is oftentimes we all solve multiple problems, but we start with the biggest problem or the most obvious problem that prospect has. One of the other things that you can do is in that programmatic marketing, which is what I want my customers to do, is to pop up some of the things that they've done that aren't outside of that main problem. Because what you'll do is you'll get somebody coming back, oh, I think I read somewhere where you do this and this and this. I have a question about that. And what you do is you start to your point, subliminally add to the services so that the big deal becomes a much bigger deal. And so many times we want to go in the small door and get the first buy and then grow it. And most times you go in the small door, you're going to get stuck in the small room. And so what we want to do is increase the size of the problem. And by increasing the size of the problem, programmatic marketing is a great way to do that. The other thing is oftentimes people who win in large account sales, we say the coin of the realm is information. Information is the coin of the realm. So you have to get as much information as you can get from them. And so some of that is through the conversations and the data, as long as it doesn't feel like we're doing a Spanish Inquisition. But then part of it can be through engagement that you do through programmatic marketing that helps you then get more information and more areas of interest to add to the broader discussion to win.
Yeah, we've even done one for a client where it was they're going after large businesses, but we would geofence the entire headquarters. So, there's 150 employees showing up, maybe only 15 of them are decision makers, but for a minuscule amount, we're talking $10 or $20 a day worth of advertising. You could geo-target the headquarters, or if they have multiple locations, oftentimes companies now, stakeholders are across the world. You might have some stakeholders in Atlanta, but then the rest of the stakeholders are in Dallas, Texas. Well, go geo-target both of those locations and get in front of everybody at the business, because you never know who that CEO is going to walk down the hall to and say, hey, what do you think about this company? Well, guess what? If you've been impressing and making good impressions on that said person, you obviously have more likely to have that favorable outcome. And it's just, it's the level of impressions and controlling the narrative where I think is a lot of these B2B businesses, miss the boat. They just think like, oh, this guy raised his hand, they filled out a lead form, or I got the referral, I'll just stay in touch with them and shoot them a text message or email every once in a while. And it's just like, okay, well, when you do that, your competitors out there gaining 300 impressions over the next, 180 days or however long the sales cycle is, 365 days if it's a full year, how are you going to keep up with those impressions? How can you control in a narrative and deliver messages if you're not doing that at this point?
Well, there's several things about that I love. One of the things is, as small to mid-sized businesses, so oftentimes we do as much as necessary and as little as possible. And when you hunt large deals, you need to hunt heavy. And in today's world, hunting heavy is outside of just people, to your point. Your impressions and people outside your four walls are also part of your hunt team. And that's also part of how we hunt heavy to land the deals. If you want a deal that is 5 to 10 times the size of your average deal. So if you normally get a $500,000 deal, and we're now talking about a $5 million deal, it is well worth your time to hunt heavy. And most of the time we think about that one $5 million deal, or that $5 million deal might be 1 year, or maybe it's 3 years, but the lifetime value of a customer, they stay with us 5 years or 10 years. That's a lot more than $5 million. Now that's a $10 million, $15 million account. Hunt heavy. Do you want the account, or are we just playing at it?
I like that. That might be the title for the show, Hunt Heavy. You've actually, I've been writing it down. The other one too is, if you walk in small doors, you're gonna get stuck in small rooms. Like you're dropping knowledge bombs here. I love it. So let's shift a little bit here. So how do you, now obviously we've talked about programmatic marketing and that type of stuff, but how do you feel AI can come in and help with these situations? And more importantly, where do you feel, and I think every business might be a little bit different, but I know this topic has came up on other shows, but where is the difference, or where is that like dividing line where AI can help, but then you also need to bring in that human relationship? Because I think that's another misconception, is you talk to companies and they're like, I want AI to do all this, and I want AI to close a $20 million deal for me. And I was just like, AI might be able to grab some attention and layer in some additional impressions and, and provide and deliver value. But at what point, or at what point does that human being have to come in and take the relationship over and lean on AI, or use AI, but not completely lean and rely on it?
Well, so there's so much to that question.
Sorry, yeah, I'm asking like 6 questions at once.
Yeah. So let me break it down. First and foremost, at this point in time in large account sales, okay, because you have multi-touch, multi-personality, multi-level communications that need to happen, AI is not really going to be ever able to solve that. They can't read the understanding, read the room, combine. Does that mean in the future they will? Probably. Today, humans have to be in the engagement. They have to demonstrate the credibility and the trust of understanding the problem and being able to have solved that problem in the past, right? We still trust humans over machines, ish, to a point, right?
Well, like you said, for now.
For now. So that's really important. AI can help in so many different ways. For example, I was working with a client who had a great big RFP coming out from a client prospect that they wanted to win. And it was like a $25 million RFP. And so I went into AI, went into their industry, asked for what an RFP would look like, using what they actually do, what the actual, who the customer was, okay, what they've done in the past, and to spit out what an RFP that customer would create based on their previous RFPs into the marketplace. We got a very clean understanding of what they were going to be asking in order for us to prep for the RFP before the RFP ever came out, from what that customer had already done before, that prospect. People have never thought about that, but you ask it about the industry, ask it about the trends, ask it about who's winning. You need to understand all of those pieces. So AI becomes all of your research, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, AI can literally go and, find me 5 relative news articles about this industry, highlighting some of the problems or current issues surrounding this industry within the last 6 months. So yes, now
Right.
when you walk into that meeting or Zoom call, whatever it is, when you have that first relationship, if you don't know everything about that client, from the business, the industry, the pain points, what's working, what's not working, what they've done in the past, and then right down to the decision maker, right? Anybody that's going to be on that call, put their LinkedIn URL in Chat GPT or Claude or whatever you're using, and find out more about that person. You should have a quick bio, more than just looking at a LinkedIn profile, but background and bio on all those decision makers. There's no reason not to do your homework nowadays. Like, doing your homework on a big deal could have taken a week or a month back in the day, that you can literally now do in a matter of a few seconds if you go in and you ask the right questions and prompt it correctly. Yeah, there's absolutely no reason why you can't walk into these meetings the most prepared person and knowing more about everybody in that room than sometimes they might know about themselves.
Absolutely. Everything about the people in the room, about the industry, like I said, about the problem that they're facing that you're trying to solve, and about the trends in the future that their organizations and pack teams and everybody is already putting out there about where it's going to go and what's going to happen. I have another client that does manufacturing, and we started years ago with the understanding of processes, manufacturing processes and retrofitting processes, and the addition of AI, the addition of robots, and the addition that was going to be where that was going to go, and and all of the electric cars and the electric pieces. So we were able to start years ago before it happened, because the trends had already been predisposed. And so you have to go to the organizations, you got to know that, and you got to tell them that you're already preparing for that, and these are the things you're going to do, and how you're going to help them hedge against their trends in the future. What are they going to do to be ahead of the game or with the game, depending on, of course, the buyers. Are they innovators, or are they best in class? What do they want to be, right?
Exactly.
And you'll know all of that from your research.
Exactly. Really good information. Anything else that you can think of in terms of like where you see some AI possibly helping leverage, outside of just research, but even throughout the process, maybe ongoing communication? Or do you really still feel like that all should be a 100% human touch?
No, I mean, I think that the programmatic conversations are important, that you're geofencing and you are communicating with them. I do think, though, we're still a little earlier in the AI world. And so there's so many things that you see that are AI written. They don't sound like humans. They don't sound like me. Now, if you set that up so it sounds like you, and it comes in your tone, and it comes in your style and approach, that's a lot better. But I see so many where we've just run it through Chat GPT and it sounds like a generic, and it doesn't sound like a person's talking to you, right?
Yeah.
I really discourage that approach. I know that's not what you're saying, but I want to make sure we clarify the differences. Just don't send it through ChatGPT and send it out there and not look at it, and make sure that it's appropriate, and make sure. But you can use ChatGPT to understand pricing strategies, what they've done in the past. You can use AI to, there's so many different software systems out there too. There's an overlay on AI that pulls all of your buyers and keep stakeholders of your prospects into kind of a org chart, monitors all of what's going on in the communications and et cetera, and gives you a predictability index of the deal closing or not closing, generally well before you know in conversations with them some of the things that are going on behind the scenes that are going to keep that from happening. And so those predictive indexes, those predictive modeling softwares that are AI are extremely helpful. And some of them right now are surprisingly accurate, like 96% accuracy.
So what you're saying is like an AI, I mean, that's why I love this show. So you're saying that like a predictability software where you put in all of your research, but then you're constantly feeding it the communications, or even like, you get on a Zoom call with the person and you're recording it. You can feed in the recordings, feed in the transcripts. So you're literally kind of built the framework of the deal, but then you're constantly feeding the ongoing communication into it. So now obviously it can help you structure deals, let you know what you're doing wrong or right, or what you can be doing next or should be doing next. But then it also, with that predictability, I mean, if you get, let's just say 2 months and $20,000 worth of an investment into a deal that now all of a sudden, with the feedback that you're getting from the client, you now have a 5% chance of closing. Well, now, okay, now you need to make an educated decision. It's like, do I continue to invest another $80,000 to try to get this guy off the finish line? Or do I cut my losses and go move on to the next deal and go invest strategically?
100%. In addition, it also says, hey, John Smith is the CEO of this organization. He's friends with Jane Doe that you know. You might want to call Jane and have her talk to John.
Ah, that type of stuff,
So,
right?
so it can do the matches. Here's the other thing. There's Lupio that goes ahead and does RFPs and rewrites, and you can train it to write your RFPs over time. It keeps your history of RFPs. It also keeps the history of all the RFPs you've sent. So you have the questions, you have the answers. You can customize an RFP and get an RFP written in minutes compared to what, weeks? I mean, there's just, oh my gosh, you could get presentations done for you. I mean, AI can integrate in sales enablement, in research, in proposal writing, in RFP draft, in predictability. It can be the overlay in your CRM systems. I mean, there's so much, just even now, that AI can step in addition to those communications we talked about, those value adds that keep you front of mind to reflect, right? So
yeah, and I think the main point here, as I just realized we're at 37 minutes. This is, obviously you're one of the guests that we might probably want to have back on here in a few months or something along those lines. We could probably talk all day. But it sounds like and which I completely agree with, in the B2B sales, and even if it's a $5,000 or $10,000 sale or a $5 or $10 million sale, AI is there to help. Right? It's not there to do your job for you. It's there to help you be better at your job, more efficient, and deliver a better and more efficient and value-driven sales process that you could deliver on your own. It's not there to do your job for you and send out automated canned emails that people know are written by AI and completely drop the layer of trust and credibility, right?
right.
And that's where, and I still think it's going to, whatever's happening now, I'm excited to see like where this goes in terms of B2B businesses, on how much we can push the envelope and incorporate AI and make things as, streamlined, as efficient as possible, but then making sure that we don't swing the pendulum too far the other way, where we lose trust and credibility, and that human relationship didn't come in and start in time, or, get involved. That was, one of the guests the other day is just like, this pendulum's kind of swinging right now and we don't know where it's going to stop. Is it 50-50 AI human relationship? Is it 25% AI, 75% relationship? And obviously every business and sales process might be a little bit different, but for sure it's not 75% AI and 25%, or even 100% AI and 25% human relationship. You have to make sure that you are taking the time, putting in the energy and effort as a human being to build those relationships.
100%. I do think that we have to also, once again, sales is not a one size fits all, right?
Oh,
and
sure.
so we have to be sure that we're clear about, are these products and services that are bought, or are they products and services that are sold, right? And understanding the difference between bought and sold, and what are you offering in the marketplace, and is it bought or is it sold? And if it's bought, there's a greater percentage that AI can engage at a greater level with your customer because they are making the buying decision without needing to be sold, right? So those are products and services that are bought versus products and services that are sold, in which you still have to engage with the buyer. Now, that doesn't mean that it's an all or one on either side, but understanding, are they bought or are they sold? That's important because it also establishes what's your strategy in the marketplace. Where do you leverage? Where do you spend money? What are you going to leverage your AI to do? You know, we did keynotes back early 20s, late 1918, where we're talking about the fact that you could buy an MRI machine online, literally. Okay. And this is back like 6 years ago. You could buy an MRI machine online. Okay. Now it's out of China. Hopefully you could translate, but you could buy an MRI machine, and everybody would have thought that an MRI machine had to be sold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once again, we have to be clear. Is it transactional? Is it transformational? Is it a bought or a sold product? And that will establish the strategies and where the leverages need to be played. The other thing is, relationships in the past have always been relationship to trust to buy. And I know I'm going a little long. Sorry, Jason.
No, we're good. We're good.
Relationship to trust to buy. And that's how a lot of people still think. That's not how it's done anymore. It's expertise to trust to buy to build the relationship. So when we start talking about humans and relationships are clearly important, but they're no longer the only thing that's important. It's expertise to trust to buy to relationship. And so I want to make sure that people are also leveraging the right things in the right places, because that human relationship is important, but your expertise and ability to understand their problem and solve it is more important in today's world than it was 5 years ago. And so let's make sure we're pushing the right levers to land the deals that we're going after.
All phenomenal information. Besides, to learn more about yourself and just more about big ticket sales, besides the website, which I run at huntbigsales.com, super easy to remember, huntbigsales.com, is there a book or a newsletter or something that you would highly recommend, fellow B2B entrepreneurs like myself?
We have 6 books.
Oh, there you go.
So our most recent book is How to Sell Big Sales.
When you say your most recent book, these are books that you and your team have.
Brother wrote.
Oh, nice.
The Secret to Big Sales: Use Executive Language to Close More Deals. That is our most recent book, Amazon bestseller. And that book, I think, is really the reason why I like it is because it elevates everybody's understanding of what is necessary in landing large deals and the executive language, and provides some of the structures that we talked about a little bit earlier in this podcast that really helps increase our presence in those executive rooms. So,
gotcha. And you had also mentioned you have a podcast and a show yourself.
We had a podcast, and it was called Sales and Illuminati, and it's still on YouTube. And we have a variety of other podcasts on YouTube. We have a newsletter. So if you go to our website, you can get access to the newsletter. We have a bunch of newsletters already published. So just go look at resources for free, and there's a bunch of them. And like I said, we have 6 books. So there's a lot there depending on what you want to learn. So, or reach out to me directly. I'll be more than happy to have a one-on-one conversation. Carajane at huntbigsales.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I think there's definitely a synergy here, and a ton of value provided. So we'll have to, reconnect in a few months and have you back on the show. One, we can reflect back and see exactly, if we were kind of right or wrong with some of our AI predictions and what's happening or coming down the pipeline, and then, come up with obviously, the big ticket sales process. It was tough asking like a specific question. When you're like, oh, that's a lot there. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I literally just asked her 8 questions at once. But no, this is, I geek out over this stuff. I love, this whole, B2B sales, big ticket sales. I think this was a phenomenal episode. So any signing off remarks or any last comments?
It's been awesome. I've had a great time and would love to come back and chat again.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for another episode coming out in a few days. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.